thought I had everything. A beautiful wife, a steady job, a future I could count on. Elena and I were a team. At least that's what I thought. I always believed in us in our relationship. But the day I found out, everything shattered. The world I had carefully built came crashing down around me. It started like any other day. I came home from work a little earlier than usual, thinking I could surprise her. I didn't expect what I found. Elena's phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing with a message. Normally I wouldn't have looked at it. But that day something felt off. I don't know what it was, maybe it was the silence in the house or the way she had been acting lately, but I picked it up. The message was from Richard. I miss you so much. Can't wait to see you tonight. The moment I saw those words, I froze. My heart raced, my hands shook. Richard, her boss. My mind scrambled, trying to make sense of it, but there was no denying what it meant. I didn't need to read anymore to know the truth. The truth was staring me in the face. I heard her footsteps behind me, and I turned just as she walked into the kitchen. Elena's eyes widened when she saw the phone in my hand. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. I threw the phone on the counter. "I should ask you that, Elena. What is this? Why is Richard texting you like that?" She froze, her face turning pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and I could feel my chest tightening. "Elena?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't meet my eyes. Instead, she stepped back, her expression unreadable. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice shaking just slightly. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Not what I think? You've been sleeping with him, haven't you?" Her silence answered for her. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had trusted her. I had loved her. And now, here I was, watching the woman I gave everything to fall apart in front of me. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but it wasn't just anger. It was confusion, pain, disbelief. "How long, Elena?" I asked, the words barely leaving my lips. "How long have you been doing this behind my back?" She took a step forward, but I took a step back. I didn't want her near me. I couldn't look at her. "Not like this." "A few months," she whispered, barely audible. "I'm so sorry." Sorry, those words echoed in my mind and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I grabbed the nearest chair and slammed it against the wall. The sound of it breaking was louder than my heartbeat. "Sorry?" I shouted, my voice breaking. "You think sorry fixes this? You think you can just apologize and everything will be okay?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice trembling now. "But I don't know what happened." I was confused. Confused? That was her excuse? I had given her everything, my trust, my heart, and this is how she repaid me? "You were confused?" I repeated, unable to process the words. "You're really going to stand here and tell me that after everything, after years, you were just confused?" She nodded, her tears now falling freely. "I never meant for it to go this far, I swear. It just happened. I couldn't look at her anymore. The woman I loved, the woman I thought would be with me forever, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. With him, Richard, the man who was supposed to be a colleague, a mentor, and yet here he was taking what was mine. "You're leaving, aren't you?" I asked, my voice hollow. I couldn't even bring myself to look at her anymore. "You've already made your choice." Her eyes filled with more tears, but she didn't answer. I knew the answer. I didn't need her to say it. She was already packing. I was nothing to her now. I turned away, my back to her. "I can't do this," I said, more to myself than to her. "I can't be with you anymore. You've already left me. You just didn't bother to tell me until now." There was a long pause, and then I heard her say, barely above a whisper, "I'm so sorry. Please understand." I couldn't take it. I didn't want her apologies. I didn't want her pity. I didn't want her anymore. I couldn't think straight. Everything I had worked for, everything I thought was real, had been a lie. Without another word, she left. And with her, she took everything. My heart, my trust, my future. She walked out the door, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a life I thought I understood. I stood there, in the silence, the emptiness sinking in, and for the first time, I felt completely and utterly alone. The woman I loved was gone, and all that was left was a hollow version of myself. After Elena left, I couldn't even bring myself to change the sheets on the bed. The house was silent, the kind of silence that presses down on you, making everything feel like it's closing in. Every corner, Every piece of furniture, every familiar object felt like a painful reminder of what I had lost, what she had taken. I sat in the living room, staring at the empty space where she had been just hours ago. The smell of her perfume still lingered in the air, and the thought of it made my chest tighten. I had tried to tell myself that maybe, just maybe, she'd come back. Maybe this was just some temporary breakdown that she'd regret. But the truth was right in front of me. She was gone. And I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken life. I hadn't eaten in days. I barely slept. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was her face. Her cold indifference when she walked out that door, leaving me behind like I didn't even matter. My phone sat on the coffee table, buzzing every now and then with notifications I didn't care about. My coworkers had called, left messages, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to any of them. They were all part of the world I had built before all this happened, the world that felt like a joke now. I ignored the calls, ignored the world outside. The house felt like a tomb. Every time I moved, I heard her voice in my head, or I could almost see her walking through the door, her smile lighting up the room. I kept telling myself I needed to snap out of it, that I needed to get up, do something. But how? How could I move on from the betrayal that had crushed me so completely? How could I keep going when the one person I trusted most in the world had thrown it all away? I found myself replaying every moment we had spent together. The trips, the laughter, the quiet moments. It was like a loop that kept spinning, over and over again until I couldn't breathe. I'd seen signs, little things that I ignored, but nothing prepared me for this. I wasn't just losing her, I was losing everything. It wasn't until a few days later that I found the letter. I had been sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, not really watching it. The silence in the house was deafening, and for a moment I thought I might lose my mind in it. That's when I saw it, her handwriting on a piece of paper sitting on the coffee table beside me. I don't know why I hadn't seen it before. It was as if it had just appeared. I picked it up, heart pounding. I knew what it was, even before I opened it. There was no mistaking it. The weight of the envelope felt heavy in my hands, almost like it was taunting me. With shaking hands, I tore it open. I don't even remember reading the first few words. But the longer I stared at the letter, the clearer it became. She was leaving for good. It wasn't just a separation, not a break. No, she was done with me. She had chosen Richard. I could feel the world spinning around me as I read the words again. And again, I couldn't escape them. I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused you. I know you will never understand why I did what I did, but I've made my choice. I can't keep living a lie. Richard is the man I want to be with now. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me one day. But this is it. I'm leaving. The words blurred in front of me. I couldn't breathe. Richard, the man who had destroyed everything. The one who took her away from me. I thought I was prepared for it, but I wasn't. I wasn't prepared for how much it would hurt. I threw the letter across the room, hearing it land on the floor with a soft thud. I stood up, pacing back and forth. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. She had made her choice, and I was nothing to her now. She was gone. Richard had taken everything I had. He had taken her. I sank back into the couch, my hands gripping the sides. I didn't know what to feel anymore. Anger? Hurt? Betrayal? All of it. I couldn't see straight. I couldn't think. How had it all come to this? I had trusted her. I had loved her. And now? Now I was alone with nothing but memories of a life that no longer existed. But something in me shifted then. As I sat there, consumed by everything that had happened, I felt a spark. It wasn't much, but it was there. Something deep inside me that said, I can't let this destroy me. I wasn't going to let Richard or Elena or anyone else take away my future. I stood up, wiping my face with my hands. The anger bubbled to the surface, and for the first time since she left, I felt something other than pain. It wasn't enough to erase the hurt, but it was enough to make me realize something. I had to rebuild. For myself. I had to stop wallowing in my misery. I couldn't keep doing this. I was no longer the man she left behind. I wasn't going to be that weak, broken man. I would rise. I would become stronger than I had ever been before. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could survive, that I could move on. I picked up the letter, and for a moment I just stared at it. But I didn't let the tears come. Not anymore. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of the next, and I wasn't going to let it end like this. I walked over to the trash can and threw the letter inside. That was the last thing she would ever have from me. I was done. The strangest thing happened that night. I woke up, but not in the house that Elena had walked out of. I didn't wake up in the emptiness of the life I had been trying to survive. I woke up in my old apartment before everything fell apart. Before the betrayal. Before I lost it all. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The apartment looked the same. The coffee mug on the counter, the blanket on the couch, even the pictures on the walls. It was all the way it was before. But then I realized it was real. I wasn't in the place I had been trapped in after Elena left. I was back in time. A few months before everything changed, I sat up on the couch, my heart pounding. What was happening? How was this possible? Had I gone mad? I stood up and walked around the room.
The apartment felt familiar, almost comforting in its simplicity.
But something inside me, something deep, shifted. This wasn't just a strange dream. This was my second chance. I had no idea how this had happened, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to waste it. The past had already broken me, but this was my opportunity to change it all. I wasn't going to be the same man I had been. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone, still in disbelief. I scrolled through the notifications, reading the messages from people I had ignored in the aftermath of everything. Friends, co-workers. It was all there, a reminder of the life I had been wasting. The life that had slipped away from me. But now it felt like I had a choice. I looked at the calendar. It's a few months before Elena even leaves me. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I had time. Time to change. Time to make things right, not with her, but with me. I wasn't going to sit back anymore. I wasn't going to drown in regret or wallow in the pain of betrayal. I grabbed my jacket, walking quickly to the door. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit me. It was a feeling of clarity I hadn't had in so long. I didn't have to follow the same path that had led me to ruin. I had control now, and I was going to seize it. The first thing I did was call my boss. I hadn't spoken to him in weeks, and I knew I'd been slipping. But I wasn't the same guy anymore. I didn't care about being passive or hoping things would work out. I was taking charge. Hello? His voice sounded groggy, but I didn't waste time with small talk. Hey, it's me, I said, my tone firm. I need to come in today. I want to talk about my future here. I've been slacking off, but I'm ready to turn things around. I want more responsibility. There was a pause on the other end. You sure about this? He asked. I felt a grin tug at the corner of my mouth. I'm sure. I'm ready to work harder than I ever have before. It wasn't just about work. It was about proving to myself that I could do more than just survive. I could thrive. I had to stop seeing myself as the guy who had been betrayed and start seeing myself as someone who could take control of his fate. I spent the next few days pushing myself harder. I took on projects that I would have avoided before, met deadlines I never would have bothered with, and started building the reputation I had lost. My coworkers were surprised, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me, but it wasn't just at work. I started taking care of my body too. Exercising, eating better, getting more sleep. All the things I had neglected in my depression. Slowly, the old me, the weak and broken version of myself, started to fade away. Every small change I made felt like a step toward becoming the person I was meant to be. Elena? She barely crossed my mind. She was a shadow in my past, something I had to leave behind. Every time I felt the old feelings of pain or regret creeping back in, I reminded myself of the choice I had now. I could move forward. I could be better. Richard? I still thought about him sometimes. I didn't know what I'd do when the time came to face him, but I didn't care. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He had taken what was mine, but now I had something greater. My strength, my ambition, and the knowledge that I had control over my life. He was just a part of the past that no longer held power over me. Every day I saw it clearer. I had been living in a fog, letting life happen to me, but now I was creating my own future. A future where I wasn't defined by the betrayal. A future where I was the one in control. The days went by and each one felt like I was slowly building something stronger. I wasn't just working harder, I was working smarter. My colleagues began to take notice. I wasn't the same guy who had once sat in the back, too afraid to step up. I was front and center, pushing ideas, taking initiative. My reputation started to change. One evening, I was at the office late, going over some figures when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my old friend Mark. He'd been distant ever since Elena left, probably unsure how to approach me. But now he was reaching out. I don't know if you'll ever want to talk again, but I just wanted to say,
I'm proud of you.
I've been hearing about your work lately. Keep going. I stared at the message for a long time. My chest tightened a bit, but I didn't feel the old pain. I felt something else. Gratitude, respect, maybe a little bit of both. He didn't know how much this meant, how much those words reminded me of why I was doing this. I wasn't doing it for Elena. I wasn't doing it for Richard. I was doing it for me. It's been weeks since I decided to stop wallowing in my misery, and every day I feel myself pushing harder, faster. The change in me is undeniable, but it's not just about me anymore. It's about what I can do with this newfound strength, this drive. Work is my battleground now, and every step I take is a small victory. I've been coming in early and staying late, attacking every project with a focus I never had before. I'm no longer the guy who fades into the background. I'm in the front, pushing the ideas, leading the charge. Every day I'm noticed, recognized for my hard work. But it's more than just work, it's about who I'm becoming. I'm becoming someone who doesn't wait for opportunities. I create them. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? Mark asked one day. He's one of the few guys left who actually notices me these days. He's been following my rise, though I think he's too afraid to admit it. I turned to face him. Yeah, what's up? Mark hesitated. I've been hearing a lot about you lately. Your ideas, your work. People are noticing. You've really changed, huh? I shrugged, trying to keep my cool, though inside I was proud of the words. Guess I finally decided to stop sitting around feeling sorry for myself. Things have to change, he grinned. You've definitely done that. Just keep it up, man. Don't let up. You're on the right track. I smiled, but there was no joy in it. Just the satisfaction of knowing I was moving in the direction I needed to be. I won't, I said, and it was true. I was no longer the underdog, the guy who had been taken for granted. I was the one in control now, but of course nothing ever comes without a challenge. It wasn't long before I started noticing Richard's eyes on me more. He'd always been this towering figure in the office, imposing, untouchable, the one everyone looked up to. But now I could see the cracks starting to form. At first it was subtle, a raised eyebrow when I presented an idea, a comment that felt just a bit too pointed, but I knew what it meant. Richard was threatened. He saw what was happening and he didn't like it. I was no longer the weak guy he could dismiss. I was rising and he wasn't used to having competition. One day I was in the break room getting my coffee when he walked in. He didn't acknowledge me right away, but I could feel his presence in the room. His voice was sharp when he finally spoke. I see you've been making quite the impression around here, he said, his tone just a little too casual. Didn't think you had it in you. I didn't flinch. I wasn't going to let him push me around anymore. I'm just getting started, I said, keeping my voice steady. Richard's lips curled into a tight smile, but his eyes were cold. Be careful. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. The warning was clear, and I knew what he was really saying. He wasn't just worried about my work. He was worried that I was coming for his position. He was starting to see me as a threat, and that was exactly what I wanted. I didn't back down. Don't worry about me, I replied. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes, just doing my job. I turned to leave, but I could feel his eyes burning into my back. He had underestimated me before, but now he saw that I was no longer the man he could control. I was becoming a force, and that terrified him. Things started to shift after that. People began asking for my advice. My projects were getting more attention, and it wasn't just from my peers. It was from the higher-ups. I was being considered for opportunities that had once been out of my reach. I could see Richard struggling to keep his grip on everything. The power shift was happening, and I wasn't going to stop. The weeks passed, and I noticed something else, Elena. She barely crossed my mind anymore. But when I did think of her, it wasn't with the same pain. She was part of a life I was leaving behind. I had spent so much time trying to please her, trying to be everything she wanted, that I lost sight of what I needed. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her in my life to be successful. What I needed was to believe in myself. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I ran into Elena. She was standing by the elevator waiting to leave. For a moment, I thought about turning around and walking away, but something made me stop. Hey, I said, my voice almost guarded. She looked up, surprised to see me. Oh, hey. I didn't expect you to be here this late. I forced a smile, keeping my composure. Yeah, I've been putting in some extra hours lately. She nodded slowly, eyes flicking over me. I can see that. You've changed, haven't you? The question hung in the air, and for a second I didn't know how to answer. What was there to say? Yeah, I have, I finally said. I realized I've been wasting too much time. I'm focused now. She sighed, a soft, almost wistful sound. I'm sorry for everything, you know. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. It doesn't matter anymore, I said. I've moved on. I'm not that guy you left behind. I saw the flicker of regret in her eyes, but I didn't let it affect me. She didn't get to have any more of my time. I hope you find what you're looking for, Elena, but it's not going to be with me. I turned away before she could say anything else. I didn't need her validation. I had everything I needed right in front of me. When I got home that night, I stared at myself in the mirror. The man who had been broken, who had fallen apart, was gone. In his place stood someone who wasn't afraid anymore, someone who knew exactly what he wanted and wasn't afraid to take it. I wasn't just moving up the corporate ladder. I was taking everything that had once been out of my reach, and nothing was going to stop me. I hadn't expected to see Elena again, but somehow she found her way back into my life. It was a late afternoon when I saw her standing outside the office building. I couldn't believe my eyes. She looked like she had aged in the short time since she left, tired, worn, as though the weight of her choices had finally begun to take a toll. She was still beautiful, but there was something different in the way she carried herself now, something I couldn't quite place. I was walking to my car when she caught sight of me. For a moment, I considered turning around, pretending I didn't see her, but I couldn't do it. I didn't want to be that man anymore, the one who ran away from the pain. I needed closure. I needed to face it. She took a deep breath before walking toward me, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky, as if she wasn't sure I'd even listen. I didn't say anything at first, just studied her, trying to figure out what she wanted. The last time I saw her, she walked out of my life without a word. "So why now? What do you want, Elena?" I asked, my voice low, careful. I wasn't angry anymore, not like I had been. It was something deeper, something colder, a calm that came from realizing I didn't need her in my life anymore. She fidgeted with her hands, not quite looking me in the eye. "I'm sorry. I know you probably hate me, but You think an apology changes anything?" I interrupted, my heart tightening. "You think after everything you can just show up and fix this?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her eyes finally meeting mine. "It's just Richard and I. Things were falling apart. He's not the man I thought he was. He's been cold, distant. He doesn't care about me anymore." I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't let it show. "And now you want me to care? You want me to feel sorry for you?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I just want to know if you could forgive me." I stared at her, trying to control the wave of emotions crashing inside me. "Forgive you? After everything?" I laughed bitterly. "You left me for him, Elena. You chose him. Now you're back because he doesn't want you anymore. That's your excuse?" She hesitated, her face crumpling as the tears welled up. "I never meant to hurt you." I was confused. "And now I see, now you see?" I echoed, my anger flaring. "Now that you've lost him, you see. What about when I was the one who was broken? What about when I needed you, and you weren't there?" She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I really am. I was wrong. I didn't think things through, and now everything's falling apart. I need you to understand." I took a step back, feeling the weight of her presence like a heavy burden. "I don't need you to understand anything, Elena. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." "Not me." Her eyes searched mine desperately. "Please, just give me a chance. I've learned so much from this. I realize now that you were the one who truly cared for me." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat, but I held it back. "It's too late. You don't get to walk back into my life and undo everything you've done." The silence between us stretched, and I could almost hear her heart break, but I didn't feel the same way. I wasn't the man I used to be. I wasn't the one who would fall apart for her again. "Goodbye, Elena," I said, turning away, not waiting for her to speak. I didn't need her to speak. I had already made my peace with this, even if she hadn't. I was sitting at my desk going through some reports when I got a message. It was from Richard. It wasn't unexpected, but it still made my blood run cold. "We need to talk." I laughed under my breath. Of course he would want to talk. He probably sensed the shift in power, and he wasn't used to it. The idea that I could be a threat to him never even crossed his mind until now, but he was finally seeing it. He was finally seeing that I wasn't the weak, broken man he once knew. I met him in the conference room, my hands folded in front of me. He walked in with that same cocky attitude, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Something that looked like fear, though he tried to mask it with arrogance. "You've been making waves, haven't you?" Richard said, his voice low, almost menacing. "Don't think I haven't noticed." I didn't respond immediately, just watched him. I could feel the power shift between us, and I relished it. "You've been trying to outshine me, haven't you?" he continued, his eyes narrowing. "Taking all the credit for things that should have been mine." I met his gaze, unflinching. "I'm just doing my job, Richard. Maybe you should try it sometime." He slammed his hand down on the table, his temper flaring. "You think you're ready for this? You think you can just walk in and take everything I've worked for?" I leaned back in my chair, a slight smirk playing on my lips. "You're right about one thing. I am ready. And you're not the man you used to be. You're slipping, Richard, and it's only a matter of time before everyone sees it." His face twisted in anger, but underneath it, I could see the cracks forming. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He didn't control me. He couldn't intimidate me. The power was in my hands now. Richard stood up, fists clenched, but he didn't say anything else. He just turned and walked out, leaving me with the realization that I was no longer the underdog. I wasn't the man who would crawl back to him begging for scraps. I was the one in control now. Elena's face flashed in my mind, but I didn't dwell on it. I was past her, and I was past Richard. The game had changed, and I was no longer the one playing catch-up. I was the one who would win. The day had come. I could feel it in the air, the tension, the electricity, the sense that everything was about to change. And it wasn't just about business anymore, it was personal. This wasn't just another board meeting. This was the moment I would take everything that had once been mine and tear it out of Richard's hands. The time for games was over. It was time to take control. I had worked too hard, clawed my way up too far to let him stand in my way. But Richard still didn't see it. He didn't see me as a threat, not yet. And I was going to make sure that by the end of this meeting, he understood just how wrong he was. I walked into the conference room, every step calculated. The faces around the table were a blur, but I didn't need to focus on them. My eyes were locked on one person, Richard. Sitting at the head of the table, his usual smug grin plastered across his face. The man who thought he could have it all. The man who thought he was untouchable. I didn't say anything right away. I just walked past him, taking my seat, letting the silence linger for a moment. The room was quiet. They all knew something was coming, but none of them knew what. Richard's eyes flicked to me, but he didn't speak. Not yet. He had this arrogance about him, like he controlled everything. I could see it in the way he leaned back in his chair, the way he looked down at everyone else. But I knew something he didn't. He was losing control and he didn't even realize it. I sat there for a second, staring at him. I could almost feel the years of frustration, of anger, of every time he'd look down at me like I was nothing. It was all building up inside me now, but I wasn't going to let my emotions take control. This was a calculated move. "Richard," I said, breaking the silence. "I think it's time we talked." He raised an eyebrow. "About what exactly?" His tone was dismissive, as if I was some kind of joke to him. I leaned forward, looking him in the eye. "About the future. About who's really in control here." The others around the table shifted, glancing at each other, but Richard didn't flinch. He just smiled that smug smile of his, the one that used to make me feel small. "You really think you're ready to run this company?" he asked, his voice laced with sarcasm. "You've been making a lot of noise lately, but that doesn't mean you've earned anything." I could feel my jaw clench, but I kept my composure. "I've earned everything, Richard. You just haven't noticed yet." I stood up, my hands resting on the table as I leaned forward. "But you're starting to notice now, aren't you? That's why you're scared." His smile faltered for just a second, but he quickly masked it with another arrogant laugh. "Scared? You're delusional." I shook my head. "No, Richard. You're the one who's scared. You see the power slipping through your fingers, and you're panicking. You're starting to realize that you've underestimated me. And that's your biggest mistake." The room was silent now. The tension between us thickened, and I could see Richard starting to realize that something was happening, something he didn't fully understand. He wasn't in control anymore. Enough of this, he finally snapped.
If you think you're just going to walk in here and take my place, you're mistaken.
I've built this company. This is mine. I watched him, feeling the weight of his words, but they didn't affect me the way they once would have. He had built it, yes. But he had built it on lies, on manipulation, on taking what didn't belong to him, and now it was crumbling. I'm not here to take anything from you, I said, my voice steady. You're doing a fine job of destroying it yourself. Richard's face reddened. His hand slammed down on the table, and his voice boomed across the room. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't belong here. You'll never be the one in charge. I didn't flinch. That's where you're wrong. I already am. The words hung in the air for a moment, and I could see it now, the fear in Richard's eyes. He was losing control. I had used every move I'd learned, every weakness I'd studied, and now the power shift was inevitable. Richard started to stand, his anger rising, but I raised my hand, cutting him off. Sit down, I said, my voice calm but firm. This is over. He hesitated, but then reluctantly sank back into his chair, glaring at me. I turned to the rest of the room, making sure I had their attention. I'm not here to fight with you, Richard. I'm here to take what's mine. And it's time for all of you to see who's really in control of this company. I turned back to Richard. You've had your chance, and you've blown it. The silence was deafening. For the first time, Richard didn't know what to say. He opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come out. I stood taller now, every inch of me exuding the confidence I had spent months building. I could feel the shift in the room, the realization that the power had already moved to my hands. You're done, Richard, I said quietly. But the words were final. You're out. I turned to the others, the board members who had watched this unfold in silence. I'm in charge now, and things are going to be different. I didn't wait for anyone to respond. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had done what I needed to do. I had taken control. As I left the room, I caught a glimpse of Elena standing by the door. She hadn't said a word during the entire confrontation, but I could see it in her eyes. Regret. And maybe, just maybe, a hint of realization. But it was too late for that now. I had won, and she no longer had a place in my life. I don't know when it happened. Somewhere between the long nights, the grueling hours, and the relentless pursuit of something bigger, I became the person I had always wanted to be. Stronger, wiser, more than the man I was before. And when I look back at everything, Elena, Richard, the betrayal, I barely recognize the person I used to be. The company is mine now. It wasn't handed to me, no. I earned it. Every decision, every calculated risk, every sleepless night led me to this point. I sit behind the desk, the name on the door a constant reminder of how far I've come. And it feels right. I've taken control of my fate. My future is in my hands, not someone else's. I glance out the window, my reflection in the glass mingling with the skyline. It's surreal, the view. The city seems small now, almost insignificant. Not because it is, but because I've grown. My vision has expanded, and I'm no longer confined by the walls of my past. I've outgrown them. My phone buzzes on the desk. I reach for it absent-mindedly, expecting another work-related message, but instead it's a text from Elena. I need to talk to you. I should have just ignored it. Part of me wants to move on completely and never look back. But then again, part of me wonders what she wants. Maybe she's realized her mistakes, but I'm not that man anymore. I'm not the one who crumbled. I'm the one who rebuilt. I type back without hesitation. We have nothing to talk about. I set the phone down, my finger hovering over the screen for a second. But I don't need to dwell on it. I don't need to hear her excuses or her apologies anymore. They don't change anything. I don't look back. I can't. She's a distant memory, one I'm not going to let take root again. The woman who walked out on me, who betrayed me, isn't someone I need in my life. Not anymore. Just as I let out a breath, the door to my office opens. Mark steps inside, looking more confident than I remember. Hey man, he says, walking in without waiting for an invitation. Got a minute? Always, I reply, leaning back in my chair, studying him. He's always been one of the few people who stuck by me, even when everything fell apart. I owe him that. He sits down across from me, his eyes flicking briefly to the name on the door. I just wanted to say congratulations. The company? It's yours now. You've really done it. Thanks, I say, nodding. It wasn't easy, but nothing worth having ever is. Mark leans forward, his smile fading just a little. I know it's been a long road, but you've really turned everything around. People have been talking, you know. They see the way you've changed. Hell, I see it, but what about her? I know exactly what he means, Elena. She's not a part of my life anymore, I say, my voice calm, and I'm not going to let her be. The past doesn't matter. I've moved on. Mark looks at me, studying my expression, maybe trying to gauge whether I really mean it. I get it, I do. It's hard, right? I mean, she was a huge part of your life. I shake my head. She was. But I've learned, and now I'm the one who controls my future. Not her, not Richard, just me. He nods, his eyes a mix of admiration and something else. Respect, maybe. You've earned this, man. All of it. I smile, but it's a smile that feels earned. Thanks, Mark. I couldn't have done it without people like you. He stands, ready to leave. Just don't forget where you came from, all right? I watch him walk out of the office, the door closing behind him. He's right. I can't forget where I came from. But I also know that I'm never going back there. I'm not that man anymore. My phone buzzes again. It's another message from Elena. I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake. I can't move on from this. Please just talk to me. I let out a sigh, but I don't even flinch. She wants me to respond. She wants to undo the damage she caused. But she can't. She's too late. She lost me the moment she walked away for him. The moment she betrayed me. I turn off the phone and look out the window again. The world is mine. But more than that, I've learned something powerful through all of this. I don't need anyone's approval, not hers. Not Richard's, not anyone's. I've built something for myself. And I'm not going to let anyone destroy it. The past is gone. Elena's regret, Richard's arrogance, they're all just whispers in the distance. And I've learned to let them fade away. I stand up from my desk, walking over to the window, looking out at the city below. It feels like a new beginning, like I've finally stepped into the future I was always meant to have. It's not about revenge anymore. It never was. It's about reclaiming my life, about proving to myself that I am stronger than the man I used to be. And I'll be damned if I let anyone take that from me.